Right now, one narrow passage is quietly choking the global economy. The Strait of Hormuz has not completely closed, but functionally, it is no longer operating normally. Traffic has dropped dramatically. Tankers are no longer moving as expected, and oil is starting to pile up. This is not a simulation or a distant risk. It is happening in real time. Every day the disruption continues, pressure builds across the world. Because nearly 20% of global oil passes through this strait. And right now, that flow is breaking down. What happens next could reshape the global economy. Under normal conditions, more than 100 ships pass through Hormuz every day. Now, that number has dropped to just a handful. In some cases, fewer than 10 vessels make the crossing. At the same time, hundreds of ships are waiting. Estimates suggest between 300 and 800 vessels are stuck in the region. Many of them are fully loaded oil tankers. Together, they carry millions of barrels of oil, but they cannot move freely. Insurance costs have surged. Shipping companies are avoiding the route, and uncertainty is freezing the system.
But I just see the same.
This is how a global supply chain begins to stall.
So need a name and we're deep.
But this is not just a disruption. It may be a deliberate shift.
Children laughing somewhere.
Iran is attempting to control the flow through Hormuz, and more importantly, to monetize it.
Don't let the darkness stay.
There are reports of transit fees being demanded. In some cases, up to millions of dollars per tanker.
Sing a song for mercy. Sing it.
Or smaller charges per barrel of oil.
We all walk this same good.
This changes everything.
These are mine.
Because Hormuz is not like the Suez Canal. It is a natural strait. Under international law, transit should be free. If that changes, it sets a dangerous precedent. On paper, no country can legally charge for passage through Hormuz. It is considered an international transit route. But reality is often different from law. If ships are forced to comply in practice, the system changes. Some countries may quietly accept the cost, just to keep oil flowing. Others may refuse and wait. This creates two parallel systems, one official and one unofficial.
For us, and I'm not okay.
And over time, the unofficial system can become the real one.
Can't wait to see it on you.
This is how global rules begin to shift, not through agreements, but through pressure.
Every day I've been out praying my baby not hurt.
The first visible impact is in oil prices. Markets react instantly to supply disruptions.
I want it all, we come in, it's a coupe, and we go.
Prices have already started rising sharply.
I'm shooting, but I ain't never gonna slack.
Analysts warn they could reach extreme levels.
Where I'm at, the legend assembler.
Some projections suggest $150 per barrel or more.
Some like the dark running,
That affects every country. Fuel becomes more expensive. Transportation costs increase.
Rolling out the gates on it. Ain't no debating on it. It got layers.
Airlines, logistics, and manufacturing all feel the pressure.
I done seen the plane cross feet. God drive like 6 V's. Blow sick.
And those costs are passed on to consumers.
The big bunch slow in my seat, it ain't the same no more. Life is everything.
This is how a local disruption becomes global inflation.
Gotta do better than walking on dodging the surface.
All from a single choke point.
Now I'm praying my baby not hurt. All of the weather we doing, our promises worth.
Asia is the most exposed to this disruption.
Baby, I'm certain. I want it all, we come in.
Countries like China, India, Japan, and South Korea depend heavily on Gulf oil.
But I ain't never gonna slack. I had to study the map.
A large portion of their energy flows through Hormuz.
The legend, a symbol of that. Symbols I ain't gonna crack.
If that flow slows down, shortages can appear quickly.
For us, and I'm not.
Governments may be forced to use emergency reserves or impose restrictions on consumption.
Can't wait to see it on your face.
At the same time, competition for alternative supply increases.
Every day I've been out praying.
Prices rise even faster, and geopolitical tensions grow.
We doing our promises worth it. Open the curtains.
Because energy is not just about economics, it is about stability and control. The disruption does not stop with oil. Everything connected to energy begins to feel the strain. Factories slow down. Shipping becomes less predictable. Supply chains start to break apart. Even basic goods can become more expensive because transportation costs rise across the board and delays multiply. This creates a domino effect, from raw materials to finished products, from ports to supermarkets. The entire system begins to tighten. There are very few alternatives to Hormuz. Some pipelines exist, but they cannot handle the full volume. They were never designed to replace the strait completely. Rerouting ships around Africa is possible, but it adds weeks to delivery times and dramatically increases costs. This makes Hormuz irreplaceable in the short term. A single point of failure in a global system. And right now, that point is under pressure, with no immediate solution and no quick recovery. Right now, several scenarios are possible. The first is controlled reopening, where traffic resumes but under strict conditions, possibly with unofficial fees and military coordination. The second is partial flow, where only a limited number of ships pass each day, keeping the system alive but under constant strain. And the third is escalation, where the strait remains effectively closed. If that happens, oil prices could surge dramatically, and the global economy could slow down sharply. The outcome depends on decisions being made right now. The Strait of Hormuz is just a narrow stretch of water, but its impact reaches across the entire world. Right now, it is being tested like never before. Not just as a route, but as a system of control. What we are seeing is not only a disruption, it may be a transformation. A shift from free transit to controlled access. From open flow to strategic leverage. And if that shift becomes permanent, it will change how global trade works. Because sometimes the most important systems are the ones we rarely think about.